My name is Melissa Hice. I'm the Financial Aid Advisor at Central Oregon Community College, and I'm a member of the Oregon Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. Welcome to today's training. I'll be your narrator for the FAFSA ORSAA completion video, Student Demographics and College Selection. This is the third video in a series of 9 core videos. I'm excited to be part of this project. Financial aid is a complicated process, and I'm looking forward to sharing information and learning together. We will start with the student demographic information. Both the FAFSA and the ORSAA collect basic demographic information about students. This information is used to confirm the student identity and ensures that the financial aid office can contact them with any questions or request any information that is needed. It also helps confirm eligibility for certain types of financial aid and ensures that the correct information is collected on the form.
The next section will ask for the student address, phone number, and email account. Throughout our training, we'll be showing you images from both the FAFSA on the left and the ORSAA on the right. Students should report their permanent address where they can receive mail. If the student and/or their family is homeless, they may use their high school's mailing address on the FAFSA. When entering the email information, a student will want to use a personal email that they will continue to have access to for several years. Please make sure that your student does not use their high school email on the FAFSA or ORSAA, as students often lose access to their school accounts once they graduate. This can create an issue further down the road if the student does not have access to the verified email that is on file with the U.S. Department of Education.
The FAFSA and ORSAA both collect gender information. The gender reported on the FAFSA is the gender assigned at birth. This is to help determine if the student is required to register with the Selective Service System. Even if the student has legally changed the gender on their birth certificate, they need to report the gender assigned at birth on the FAFSA. Men who are not yet registered with Selective Service and who are under the age of 25 may use the FAFSA to register. The first question will ask you, are you registered with the Selective Service System? If the student checks no, then it will provide a follow-up question. Do you want us to register you with Selective Service? If the student checks yes, the student will be automatically registered. If the student answers no, then the student would be required to go to sss.gov to complete the registration process. It is important to remember all young men between the ages of 18 and 25 must register with the Selective Service, even if they are undocumented. You can find more information at sss.gov. The FAFSA and ORSAA collect state residency information for both the student and the parent. This is helpful in several ways. Firstly, it helps identify which students are eligible to receive state-sponsored financial aid. And secondly, the student's residency directs the FAFSA data to the appropriate state agency for reporting and analysis purposes. Please note the ORSAA data is only reported within the state of Oregon. The ORSAA in particular asks several residency questions. These questions are very important as they establish whether or not an undocumented student is eligible to pay the in-state tuition rate. This brings us to the marital status. The student will use the pull-down menu to choose their current marital status at the time they are completing the FAFSA or ORSAA. The options available are I am single, I am married or remarried, I am separated, I am divorced or widowed. The FAFSA and ORSAA forms are used for all students to access post-secondary education. While it might seem humorous to collect marital status from a 17 or 18-year-old, this is important data for students who attend college who do not fall into the traditional 18 to 20-year-old demographic. If the student has a driver's license, it should be listed on the form. If the student does not have a driver's license or only has a state ID card or driving permit, those fields should be left blank. The next section is student education. On the second question, you will see a student is asked, what will your college grade level be when you begin the aid year? Graduating high school seniors will check never attended first year, even if they have earned dual credits while in high school. The next question will ask, what degree or certificate will you be working on? A student would use the pull-down menu to choose the appropriate degree or certificate. A student attending a four-year institution would choose first bachelor's degree. The last question will ask the student, will you have your first bachelor's degree before you begin the upcoming aid year? The student would select no if they do not or will not have a bachelor's degree earned when starting the upcoming school year. The student would only answer yes if they have earned the degree. If a student almost completed a bachelor's degree, for financial aid purposes, it is very different than actually being granted the degree. This becomes a very important distinction as we see more adults completing the FAFSA or ORSA in order to return to school and upgrade their skills. Most students would like to be considered for work study. It is important that a student checks yes to the "Are you interested in being considered for work study?" question. If the student answers no or "I don't know," work study would not be part of their original award package. Work study is a scarce resource on many college campuses, and students who don't request it on their FAFSA risk being put on a waiting list if they ask later in the year. At this time, Oregon does not have a state work study program, but many of our individual colleges and universities have work study funding from their institutional funds. The second question is regarding foster youth. Students should check yes to the foster youth question, even if they have been reunited with their family or adopted by a different family. The last two questions ask about the highest level of education the student's parents completed. If a parent dropped out of high school, the student would answer middle school/junior high, unless the parent eventually completed a high school diploma or credential. If the parent did not complete 8th grade, the student would check the other/unknown option. This brings us to the high school information. Note the asterisk next to the word important. If you are helping a high school senior complete the FAFSA or ORSA, this is an important question. By correctly listing the high school the student is attending, school counselors and administrators can receive information about which students have completed the FAFSA and ORSA and will use this information to follow up with students who don't complete a form right away. You also want to make sure that students use the search function to look up their high school. So after entering the name of their high school, city, and state, they will hit search. Using the built-in database is the best way to ensure that students get matched with the right school and that high schools get accurate data. Now is the time for students to choose the college and universities that they are interested in attending. If students wish to be considered for the Oregon Promise, they must have at least one Oregon Community College listed on their FAFSA or ORSA. FAFSA students can choose from colleges and universities from across the country and some foreign institutions. ORSA student choices are limited to Oregon institutions only. It is easy to add and remove colleges and universities on the FAFSA after it's been submitted. However, it is much more difficult to do on the ORSA application. Students can add up to 10 school codes on the FAFSA. Please help your students choose their top 10 schools wisely. If you have a student that is considering more than 10 schools, have the student add the first 10 schools. Wait until they receive an email stating that the FAFSA information has been processed and sent to the schools listed on the FAFSA, usually about 1 to 3 days. Then the student would go back into the FAFSA, choose the school selection tab, remove the schools that have already received the information, and then add the additional schools, sign, and resubmit the FAFSA. On the FAFSA, I've always found it easiest to search by city and state. Portland, Oregon has 26 colleges and universities. So if a student is interested in a school in Portland, they would look through the selection, check the box or boxes of the schools that they'd like to send the FAFSA data to, and then they would begin a search for another city and state until the student has all their potential schools listed. Once the FAFSA has been processed, approximately 3 days, the student can then log into their FAFSA and add additional schools. After selecting the schools, the student will then be prompted to choose a housing option for each college that is listed on the FAFSA or ORSAA. The options to choose from: on campus, off campus, or with parent. In this example, you see that the student chose a different choice for different schools in Portland. Congratulations on completing another installment of the FAFSA ORSAA completion training. We know that even in small doses, the information can be daunting, so please feel free to watch this session as many times as you need. You may even wish to come back to it when you're helping students. If questions arise, do not hesitate to contact an Oregon College or University's financial aid office to get additional clarification. When you are ready, you may move on to the next session. Thank you so much for joining me and being a part of this process.